Well, by professional training, I am education, a counseling psychologist. So my bachelor's degree is in education, a master's in counseling, and then my doctorate is in counseling psychology. And I was really trained to be a therapist, counseling psychologist therapist. But early on in my career, I was aware I was much more interested in groups and teams and organizations than individual therapy. So I wrote my doctoral dissertation. I did all of my research around the area of stress and burnout. So my real interest was, what is it that causes stress? Kind of what's the definition of stress? And then I was really intrigued by what's the relationship between stress and physiology. What were the physical things that were happening? And there was a clear correlation. The best example that I can give you is that people who are very perfectionistic thinkers carry the weight of the world on their shoulders and their back. And they have a lot of lower back pain. So I was really interested in how does somebody deal with stress in terms of their body. So that then became the focus of my interest as a consultant. And I am not an academician. My practice is very pragmatic. I am the president and CEO of a consulting company. And I began by doing a lot of presentations about how to manage stress. And that led into all kinds of other backgrounds, but that's my real passion, the relationship between stress management, and then it was a natural connection to get into the world of leisure and exercise. So that's kind of how I got here. That, and my spouse has been on the board of directors for WLO. So I began to come to these meetings and to listen in on the presentations, and I thought, well, that's really speaking to me. So it's a personal and a professional excitement that I have for this field. Number one change, I think, is much more awareness. And leisure wasn't something that 2 generations ago people gave a whole lot of interest to. And now there's such a degree of freedom. In fact, it's not just freedom, that people are actually demanding it. What I love about the younger generation is they're saying, we need to keep a balance in life. We are not going to be like our parents or our grandparents. We're not working ourselves into the ground. So I would say the first thing that I see is a real understanding and awareness that we have to have leisure in our lives. Leisure, exercise, sports, it seems regional, however people define it. But a sense of, I have to do something that's not just production oriented. It's not necessarily related to my career, but that's a way of taking care of me. I think also what I've seen amazing in terms of changes are a real integration of the different kinds of leisure and recreation. I'm very involved with the arts. So I've served on boards for the symphony in the last city that I lived in. In the city I'm living in now, I'm on the board of directors for the Art Museum. We have yoga and meditation in the Art Museum. We have a wonderful botanical garden in our community, and they have art lessons in the garden so that people are drawing the plants. So a really nice change that I've seen is an integration of the leisure activity. So somebody doesn't just go to a gym to work out anymore. There's a layering of the kinds of different ways, and I think it really draws people into leisure, because I think it was expressed many times in presentations today, people have to do what they love or they're not going to stay committed to it. So I think that that's a nice thing. There's also a broadening of the activities. When you think of the new kinds of activities that are happening today, I mean, there's whole Olympic skateboarding. There wasn't anything like that. There are lovely integration of all kinds of different sports that we hadn't even thought about. That water aerobics. I was involved in a research study at the last university that I was involved with. that was doing a whole thing for women who were recovering from, not recovering, well, they had recovered from breast cancer. They'd been out for a while. And what was the impact of water aerobics and exercise? And so there's a really great integration. I've also seen much more emphasis on diversity of age, you know, and it's great because at least in the United States, in North America, there's far less physical education in schools. And so now kids are being introduced at a very young age to Taekwondo and all those kinds of activities, and wonderful leisure and recreation activities for senior citizens. And I think China's a great example. You can't go to a park at night without seeing men and women dancing, lots of activities that are exercise, leisure, martial arts in the park at night. So there's an integration of age, of the different kinds of activities, but mostly an awareness that this is an important part of our lives. I think they better be very holistic in their approach. I think that they must be, they don't have to be certified and specialized, but they have to be psychologists, they have to be sociologists, they have to be physiologists. I think in terms of being a psychologist, someone whose field is this, you have to figure out, what is this person like? What's the leverage? What's the payoff? People don't want to do things that they don't want to do, and telling them it's good for them isn't going to do it. But be a good psychologist. Figure out what's the leverage, what works for this person. Be a good sociologist. Think about where is this person in terms of their own life? What is their income level? What actually can they do? What can they not do? Be aware. As a physiologist, don't give people activities that are impossible for them to do. When people are faced with failure, it only reinforces, I don't want to do that anymore. And I also believe people in this field must stay open and curious. I don't care how long they've been in this field or how dedicated they are to their particular segment of the field. But if you can't be excited by some new things, and conferences like we've had in the last 2 days, make me even more curious. As I said, I mean, I come from this as a psychologist. I don't come from this as a health and fitness and leisure and tourism expert. That is not my expertise. But as a psychologist, I'm so excited about the application of this to my field. So I think that people in this field in the future have to be all of those things. I think we really have to approach human beings as holistic beings, being human. And we need a very diverse skill set. Well, you know, I'm torn between saying, you know, let's imagine, because the presentation was about stress, and you've got something that's really stressing you, and there's a part of me that says, well, it kind of diverts you from the immediate stressor, but I've refined that thinking. I'm not sure it diverts you as much as it momentarily pushes the anxiety out and then allows you to refocus on what is the stressor, so that you're not catastrophizing, you're not being histrionic. You're saying, okay, so whatever it is, the leisure activity or the rigorous exercise, it has calmed you down enough to say, okay, this is really the issue that I need to focus on, and this is how to solve that problem. I think the other issues are self-care, taking time from either your job or your responsibilities as a daughter or a mother or a father or a colleague. It's just taking time out to care for yourself. And whatever it is that you enjoy doing, whether it's running or playing golf, or I love to cook, that's my absolute passion. That is my form of de-stressing. It's basically taking care of yourself. It's doing the kinds of things that you like to do. I think that leisure activities enhance creativity. They get you away from what you're usually doing and looking at things with new eyes, a new set of eyes, a different paradigm. So it enhances creativity. But mostly, I think it's a wonderful form of self-efficacy. I also like to walk and run, and I do it pretty vigorously. And when I've come home from a very long walk, I feel good. I did it. I have a Fitbit. I like to measure my steps. And so I think feeling a sense of self-efficacy about something that you're not necessarily paid for, that's not your absolute responsibility, you've just done it for yourself. That's a wonderful feeling and an incredible de-stressor.